right, it's 7:22, and I'm closing the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. Any other questions, comments, motions? I have no questions or comments.
No, it just seems pretty simple.
I'm trying not to prompt everyone to make a motion.
Second. That we approve the subdivision and all its documentation.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right.
Who was number 2 on that? Second?
I seconded that. Okay. I jumped the gun, but that's a second.
The only other question I had for the board is when we record these, which we did the last time in 1999 on these live subdivisions with all that other data, and it's up to your choice. I brought a Mylar each way. The registries like them stripped down just where you can see the property lines. I've left on all the wet area and the flood area, but I've taken off the other requirements of the board, such as the tow hole and the property lines. I have both Mylars. I can leave them both here, and you can make that decision later if you want.
I think for recording purposes, like you say, they're only interested in what we were doing, not how the land looks.
Correct. So that's what we like. We'd like to do it. Not all boards agree with that. So. All right, appreciate that.
Yep.
Do you want a copy of the folder that I had for your file, or do you care?
We can put them in the record, Alan.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent.
I'll leave them all in for hours.
Yes. Do you have the Mylar? Or you
Yes, I do.
Okay. So we'll need the 3 in the Mylar. No, but somebody could probably win a poster in the raffle we're having later.
Looks like nice wrapping paper. Yeah.
Don't imagine you get paid by the amount of ink that wasn't paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should bring that home for Greg.
All right. So next up is a site plan approval on PID number 214-006. The application will review a site plan for the construction of a restaurant addition containing seating, a walk-in cooler, and an oven, and related site improvements. This parcel is in the agricultural zone.
Thank you, Mom. Oh, you'll be.
I was about to use the gavel, then I realized I need that, so.
You might.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. This is the existing last year restaurant, and what Mr. Salmon proposes to do is just make an addition on the back of the building.
You need to see what's right.
On the highway side for the cooler and additional seating and things like that. We've also shown there's right now the existing parking ends at this line right here, and they're going to expand that to give them adequate more parking area out there than they have now, which will be more than the number required, but they're adding that on. We've also shown an area in here that's a proposed septic replacement area if they need it. For the existing system is in this area right down here, and if they need to expand the system, it will go out there.
Any questions from the board about the completeness of this application? Comments, questions?
Make a motion, we accept the application as complete.
I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, application is complete. Thank you for making a motion without me saying anything. Anything else from the applicant about, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but,
Really, he nailed it.
okay.
First try.
We should get you like a frequent
I'm glad I
visitor
brought him.
punch card for.
Glad I brought him.
here.
Yeah, the shirt thing was good, too.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it.
All right, questions, comments about this, this proposal from the board? What's a nitrate setback line?
What's that?
A nitrate setback line?
That is, in a commercial application, when you do a septic system, they have what they call nitrate setback lines. So in a larger system, larger septic system, they have a setback from upslope, side slope, and down gradients that you have to maintain from abutting properties. So
Thank you.
the downslope isn't an issue because it goes into the Route 25. Good question, though.
Other questions from the board? Okay. It is 7:29, and I'm opening up the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak, ask a question, make a comment about this application? Okay, seeing none, it is still 7:29, and I am going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board to see if they have any more questions, or any questions.
I have none.
I make a motion, we approve as presented.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Whew.
Thank you.
For the residents up the hill. All right. Finally, number 4 for the evening.
Kevin, are you going to want this recorded? Do you want this
We should
recorded?
have made that a condition of the
No.
approval.
Cost you $1.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's going to be
How
more
many
than
do you
$1.
have to keep?
5. 3. You lose no opportunity.
Yeah.
That's an excellent idea. Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
You'd be getting one in the mail
Gotta
anyway,
be
but that's
powered
okay.
all. Yeah.
Something to look at tonight.
Stranger things have happened.
Yep.
Shouldn't have even.
Yeah. Be prepared. Funny things.
That
Paid that
probably
yearbook
goes
and
on
brought my own
record,
claim.
too,
Yeah.
when the off button gets hit.
Yeah. Okay, number 4, a boundary line adjustment between PID numbers, number 104-057 and 104-050 to yield 183 square feet to PID number 104-050 and PID numbers 104-057 and 104-052. Did everyone get that? All right.
Okay, this is property that's principally owned by Mr. Simpson, which is at the corner of the road going down to the high school and elementary school, Ward Hill, and Highland Street. And what we're here for is there are 2 houses that are part of the River Ridge subdivision. One is owned by Montagues and the other is owned by Mr. they were given building permits, and there were some flaws in the building permit applications through no malice of intent or anything like that. And as a result, the decks ended up being built about 3 feet across the boundary line. So what Mr. Simpson decided to do, originally he had given licenses to keep the decks there. And in the last year or so, Mr. Simpson, which I'll a little bit about later, has left all of this area in conservation easement. So at the time he did that, he wanted to make sure that the encroachments weren't encroachments anymore. So he agreed to jog the line around each one of the decks so that they they were on the right property and they were no longer an encroachment on his property. And it's a small square footage, and it goes around the decks, but it eliminates the encroachment issue, and that was his purpose for each property.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board about the completeness of this application?
Make a motion to accept. Make a motion to accept as complete.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Any other questions to the applicant that of a different nature?
There's currently a conservation easement on that property.
Yeah.
Is that what you're,
Yeah.
So is there like a land trust or something involved?
Yeah, it's actually I put it
You can read it off the bigger print here, Chris. Make some references up on the Highland Street
it's
side.
given to it's to the Rumney Ecological Systems and the Baker River Land Trust.
And is this something, do they have to approve this, or have you talked to them about it?
Well, what Mr. Simpson did, they were aware of this fact. Actually, when he was giving the easement, that was one of their conditions, is we don't want any encroachments. So he reserved in the conservation easement, he reserved a 10-foot easement exception area so that he could do these adjustments in that. So now this area is, in fact, the whole lot is in a conservation easement. There is an area from here to the road where the house is there's limited things that you can do because of the house there, and they can improve the house and do things like that. But as far as the rest of it is just it's not for construction or building or anything like that. You can still do silvicultural operations, agricultural operations, things like that. But basically, he's left it to be, in conservation. So, which was the one thing I said I'd like to get back to is just as a plug, because these things, this is a pretty nice area to be conserved right in the middle of town.
Mm-hmm.
And some, people do this and they don't, I don't think they get the recognition they deserve for doing it, because it's done quietly and there's no fanfare. And I know he's done it, and fathers have done it, and Kennistons have done it, and they ought to get a few kudos for it is all. So that's my plug for Mr. Simpson and his conservation easement, which is...
Pass them along my thanks.
What's that?
I ski there, so pass them along my thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So anyway,
I also think
it's not really germane to the adjustment, but anyway.
No, it's also, I imagine the conservation easement wouldn't allow for any of the constructions. That would be a violation of the easement once it exists anyway to have the deck there. So, okay, so unless there's any other comments from the board, questions, I'm going to open it up for public hearing at 7:37. Would anyone like to speak about this application?
I just have one question. Kevin made a comment that there was a 10-foot setback on the line. Is that the whole way behind our houses?
Yeah,
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just, that was in the conservation easement that he granted to them. He reserved that area so that he could do the adjustment and things like that, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that go away now? Now that I mean, once the BLA code comes, it's already served its purpose by accepting it prior to.
Now it all becomes into the conservation easement.
Okay, so the easement disappears.
So that was basically just a
placeholder.
Yeah, it was a legality issue that they left in so that he could, do this. That's the only thing I didn't agree with him on, actually. I thought, if they were getting the easement, they could have said, you got to, deal with it yourself because you're getting it for nothing. But anyway, that's just me. He's a nicer guy.
I make a motion.
Hang on, we're still in public hearing. Any other comments? Okay. It is now 7:38. I'm closing the public hearing. Yeah, and John, what were you saying?
I make a motion, we accept approve the boundary line adjustment as specified.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you.
Just made up as a noise on the microphone. Always hitting the thing.
Don't start massaging your wrist, Madam Chair.
I forgot what I did, but they had to come out and speak to you. I think
I can't wait.
I kicked the wire with my foot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to unfinished and other business.
Sure.
Does anyone have any unfinished or other business?
I don't know if this is, I think this is unfinished business. Is there a mechanism for addressing with the zoning board the issue that came up tonight? Like, can you do that? Should one
I
of
can
us
do
go
that
there?
as a member of the zoning board.
Yeah, because...
Well, it's funny because the ZBA is under different rules than the planning board in many respects, at least as far as how they do these things. I think they're precluded from raising issues on their own as they're a quasi-judiciary and they have to have matters brought before them.
Could I go as a citizen?
Certainly, but there's, yeah, I imagine you could. Or I could bring it up to them. But the sense of it, I mean, it would be a tough one for them to address because they don't make rulings like the planning board does. Decisions about what they make decisions about are done at this board, and they make the decisions based on what comes out of here. Which isn't to say that, it wouldn't hurt to let them know that this was something that we ran into that was funny in this regard, and to be aware, but also, and certainly put, to actually, in this case, had they been clear originally and said, okay, you have 2 years from the day you build your barn to do this, it would have been.
But even then, if for whatever reason that house couldn't be built, Rebecca's question is what happens? And I think that's really what do we do if, for one thing, someone could take advantage of that. Well, I mean, we can have, I mean, they're going to tear down a barn. Right. So, all of a sudden, the spirit of that variance has been defeated, whether purposely or not. And someone could do that purposely, just decide, I'm never going to build a house. I mean, we don't know. Right.
As I said, this is it's a unique case. There are mechanisms to go that. I mean, it's like violation of subdivision rules. They can be brought before, taken to court, essentially. So, you know, even though it's not often exercised, and in this case, probably not even contemplated, there's probably enough around it. And I think my first step tomorrow would be to put this to the town council, to be honest with you. Find out just where, in cases like this, you know, who takes precedence, and it may very well turn on the fact that there was no statement made by the ZBA in their decision about the linkage between the commercial and the residential. Had they done that, then it could have fallen under the regular rules. You know, in essence, that their ruling would have preempted the timeline for site plan review, because they, you know, that would be the mechanism to ensure that at that point, initially, you know what I'm saying?
But are you talking about an adjustment to the zoning regulation based on the fact that it came up and it required a variance, and it might need a variance again? Or I'm also thinking of the case of the Airbnb that there was no regulation for, and does your question apply in that instance also? How does it get from our, gee, we don't have anything to cover this, to now we do?
Yeah, and you know, it may be down the line that it's not even an issue because the proposal is to build the house first.
Right, but what I keep coming back to, Brian, is it's something you said, that the zoning board never would have allowed this if there wasn't a residence. So in other words, they wouldn't let someone from Holderness put a barn in the single-family residence, but yet they gave them permission to do that, and there's nothing binding. So it puts us in a pretty delicate situation.
I understand that exactly. I mean, that they're dealing with, and you are too, with, you know, like the spirit of things.
I think that's why Brian mentioned that, in case we wanted to do that.
Right.
I felt like it was something that we needed.
I saw the conflict, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. I didn't want it to in any way quash their application, but it's a consideration. And going forward, perhaps, you know, this could be an amendment to the zoning, that in cases like, you know, where there's these uses are linked, you would take the least impactful one first, or the foundation for the second one, which is the home in this case, require that to be built first, and then the other would have approval afterwards. But this is loaded backwards, and you know, from an efficiency standpoint, I can certainly understand why they're doing it this way. You'll have a structure there. He can store his building materials. That's always a key when you're out in the field. You know, where am I going to put all my crap? Until you have the frame up, you have piles of stuff here and there, and you don't really want to leave tools out in the rain. So, and as I said, I don't have a fear with these folks at all. It's just that I saw the conflict, and I wanted to make sure that there was a discussion about it.
But I don't think we can operate on trusting, you know, I trust these people. I think we need some kind of clear-cut rule and guide, so we're not discussing the character of people in a public meeting.
I agree with you, but I do think that this is such a unique case. I mean, we can't cast a net over every possible combination that's going to happen. In this one in particular, when there's just a small stretch of the single family, that, I mean, that's what triggered this whole thing, is the stricter stricter zone holds true for the whole property, and they've got this teeny little bit in the SFR, and then the rest is in agriculture. So
had I seen this conflict at the outset, I would have recommended that as a condition in the variance.
So a question: if I lived in Holderness and wanted to put a business in Plymouth, that would be fine in the agricultural zone. That was their problem, that it was, so really that's the variance.
Small, small piece of it that was in the single family.
The only access to the property.
But the stricter ordinance holds.
Right.
So.
And because their proposal was to build a home on the property, and you know, we all want to keep all our stuff together, and they were very upfront about it at the outset, you know, as far as what they wanted to do. And I said, you know, you can fly either way on this, but you know, depending on the impact of housing your vehicles up there, you might get some pushback from the neighbors. And you know, then reading further and seeing that there was actually a prohibition against exactly that in the zoning ordinance. made them want a variance. So they were still interested enough to do this up front, which speaks to their character, very much so, because they could have just, when they failed, they said, okay, well, we're just going to build the home and, you know, we'll park our cars there in our commercial vehicles because that is totally allowed. There's personal possessions and we don't have a number on cars. So the greater good is done by allowing them to do that and to do it in an area where they're protecting their vehicles from the environment and vice versa.
So essentially, and maybe this is the way we should look at this, and then we really wouldn't even need to have this conversation. What the zoning board did was take that little slice of single-family, that variance took that slice of single-family residence and put it in the, basically they made a boundary line adjustment kind of.
Essentially, yeah, like the zone line is.
So I guess thinking about it that way, then, you know, it shouldn't even be an issue, right? You know, and we wouldn't have done it if it was totally in the...
Correct.
Yeah,
and
okay.
it would never have come to the planning board because they wouldn't have gone through the ZBA. Okay. I mean, the hardship in that particular case was the fact that 99% of the property lies in the agricultural zone, and it's only the access and it's only that one paragraph in the zoning ordinance that prevented them from doing it. They weren't proposing to locate the commercial barn in the single-family zone, just to get to it. So it kind of cast in a little bit. Familiar with the topography up there, I knew that where they were proposing the barn, it would be invisible to the neighbor. So the only thing that would really have an impact would be their ingress and egress during business hours. And they would, you know, and then they came forward with the hours that they would be operating, which is well after the end of quiet hours in the morning, and actually pretty early in the afternoon. They go 7 to 3:30 or 4 is what they said, because it's pretty hard work. So I imagine they'll all be back. You know, every vehicle will be back in the barn before traditional dinner time in the neighborhood. But you're right. It's so unique that I really doubt we will ever see one like this again. But if we do that, the place to put the time frame constraint would have been to link it at the variance level and not at the site plan review level.
Well, especially if that's what the ZBA intended, was to have those two linked that way.
Right, you know, and they didn't come out and say, you know, it is thus, but that was the basis of the application, that they were going to build their home and they wanted to have this blessing for it.
I guess, and now that you've gone through it in that way, if the impact is from the barn, why would there need to be a requirement for a home? Because the home's not causing any impact. The barn's allowed in the agricultural zone, and if the only impact is on the traffic because of a larger number of vehicles belonging to the business, why would that even be
It was
a
the access.
It is
Purely
the
on the
access.
Access to the
I get that, but what's causing the problem with the access is the business, not the house.
Correct.
Arguably, a house is going to cause more impact because there'll be more traffic and an actual structure there, a septic system and stuff like that. So,
I was thinking the other way around. That the traffic from the business would exceed the traffic from the house.
I'm just saying it's you add a house and build a house, the traffic, there's going to be more traffic just because now there's a house there. Not more than the business, but just, yeah.
Right, and the other thing, because it's an off-site business, all the vehicles are leaving at approximately the same time in the morning and returning at approximately the same time in the afternoon.
Maybe they'll slow down the traffic on Reservoir.
Right, and whereas in a residence, you know, there's multiple trips during the day. You know, if you're at home, you go out and, you know, come back. Whereas the business, I mean, they're in and out, you know, because they're conducting their business elsewhere, which kind of led back to why they needed a barn next to their home in the first place. And, you know what I'm saying? It was just, you know, the whole thing is greater than the sum of its parts, you know, as far as it touches just about every aspect of zoning and planning that we have. And you know, it's, you know, we want to do the right thing and allow people the freedom to do what they want. We kind of run smack into regulations here. You know, they say do this or that, and we're trying to figure out, well, what about the other way? You know, so that's why we do it like this. But yes, the place to put the time constraint would be at the initial presentation, at whichever board they had come to, or to be absolutely clear in the fact, in the notice, when they made the motion to approve it, that, you know, it's approved because of the single-family aspect of it. And, you know, like I said, it seems like every time these folks turn around, they're running into another wall of bureaucracy. But I don't think that there's another property out here that's like that, just because of all the things that happened. Of course, now knowing what to be aware of is the big thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, also, we do have on the agenda for post-master plan is to look at some of our zones. And we can certainly make our zones not cross property through people's property. So, so that'd be
Property with multiple zones.
yeah, exactly. So trying to figure out how we can avoid that as much as possible.
I live in a 2-zone property. You know, the paint on the back of my garage is in the agricultural zone, the rest is in the single-family zone. Why they didn't follow the stream, which is a mere 20 feet away, I have no idea.
Just one of many questions that surrounds the zone.
That's right, Senator.
That's why we have variance.
Yes.
Variances.
So I don't really have anything to update on the master plan. I'm still waiting for the chapters 2 and 3 from Steve's class. And then I'm going to have to take a stab at the final edits to the actual master plan because Polly took it as far as he could, and I think he graduates this weekend. So that's going to take me probably 2 weeks to get done because I'm going to have to do that myself, which is fine. But hopefully I'll have something for review by the time we have our work session. So that's the update there. It's also been a long enough meeting that I don't think we need to, I mean, we'd be digging into a whole lot of nothing because there's nothing to report. So, all right, any other business?
I have some.
Okay.
I sent you the flyer today via email. There's planning board training in Albany on June 23rd. It's 9 to 11:30. It's free to North Country Council members, or $20. So either way, we're covered. If any of you would like to go, sounds good. They offer light refreshments.
I'd like to go.
Okay. Just
RSVP?
shoot me an email. Absolutely, tomorrow. Just say, sign me up,
Okay.
and I'll do that.
Because we don't know where our membership with North Country Council stands yet.
No, no. So like I said, either way, they're covered. I believe that it's in the hands of the state at this point.
So it could be a while.
Yeah.
Where is Albany?
Between Tamworth and Conway.
Yes.
Where?
Between Tamworth and
You used to
Conway.
live there?
Oh, is
in
it?
Albany?
Right on the town line, yeah. Yeah. Why? Because I
had to
answered
look it
so
up.
quickly?
No, because I remember.
I was about to say exactly what she did.
Yep.
Oh, actually, no, I was thinking of
Kinda
someone
that way.
else. That was a total guess on mine.
No, but I lived in Tamworth until I was 10, and then periodically throughout college. All right. Any comments from our dwindling public?
Nope, no comment. I'll make an emotion to adjourn.
Back. I'll second that.
All right, meeting is adjourned unless anyone objects.